What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with our initial reactions to the Detroit Lions' Week 3 loss against the Minnesota Vikings, 24-28 on the road. So let's get it started.
Fired up. It's made a great decision.
Great teammates, coaches, and other people who want to be Super Bowl champions. And we are. We're going to do it this year.
And we're going places because we want to go places.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here, and we are back with our first initial reactions from this game. This is without a rewatch, just the initial reactions from watching this thing live. And yes, I did need to take a little bit to cool down and come back to this. I can't do this immediately because I'm just going to be losing it. So take a second, cool down, hear Dan Campbell's presser as well as Goff's, then come back to it. And now I'm a little bit more relaxed. Unfortunately, everybody else in the North won. The Bears, which was kind of expected, and the Packers, so that doesn't make anything better. It would have been great to see those two lose and be like, hey, we're still all right. It stinks that they also won as well. But this was just another really, really tough way to lose. And this is the NFL, right? We know a lot of games are tight. We know a lot of games are going to be close, and you have to be able to win close games. I mean, you're not going to blow teams out consistently. It just does not happen. Most games in the NFL are tight. So the idea of playing 8 games within one score, again, we've had that in the past. We've heard that with Campbell last year. We've heard that when Patricia was here. It doesn't really mean anything unless you close those games. But what's so unfortunate about this one is that you really felt like the Lions gave this game away. I mean, that's what it felt like. I think most people feel that way watching this one. However you thought they did it, I think most of us feel like we just gave this game away and we had it in our hands. And I remember saying at halftime, going into halftime, there are some games where you feel like your team is just playing better than the other one. And maybe it's not reflecting on the scoreboard yet, whether that's because you've had some kind of crazy turnover, a couple of calls that maybe didn't go your way, whatever it may be. Maybe you're in a tight game, maybe you're tied, but you feel like your team is playing better football. And you feel like by the end of it, you'll be, and it'll work out, right? It'll work itself out because you're playing the better football game. As long as you continue along that path, you're going to win this game. And that's what I felt like at half. Yes, we were tied, but I felt like we were playing the better football game. I really did. Offensively, I felt like we were clicking. You know, we had a couple stops in there, I guess you could call it. I mean, our first possession was a missed field goal. Minnesota also missed a field goal right after we missed it. But our first possession was a missed field goal. We come back with back-to-back touchdowns. We had 2 nice drives. Specifically, the third one was over 5 minutes. And then you also had a downs, which the Detroit Lions, on a 4th and 1, tried to throw a pass to TJ Hockenson, which they covered up really well. It just was not there. It had no chance. But Dan Campbell was aggressive there on 4th and 1. And as they said, they seem to do a lot of things to kind of put themselves in, hey, 4th and manageable, right? It's 3rd and 8. Okay, let's just try to get close, and then we'll go for it if we're close enough. And the Lions seemingly did a lot of that in this game, which is not ideal because that probably means you're not doing great on first down, and at times that was the case. But the Detroit Lions, I just felt like offensively removing the ball, and then they had the drive right before half where they ended up punting from their own 42. But it felt like the Lions were moving it, right? And then defensively, on the defense side of the ball, yes, the game was tied, but the way they tied it didn't feel the same. I mean, you had basically a 4th and goal. However, there was a pass interference on Mike Hughes on a 3rd and goal from the 4, which I won't get into the calls very much, but this one specifically I felt like was a pretty bad call. Either way, that pass interference, right, puts them at the 1, they score the next time. You don't get that PI call, which I definitely don't think it needed to be called. You know, you're holding them to a field goal, or they're going for it from the 4-yard line out. So it just felt like the Lions were playing the better football game at halftime. That's what it felt like. And Minnesota came out, they received. Lions get a 3 and out immediately. And, you know, you could say they kind of limped into half defensively. I don't know if I would say they limped in, sort of, I guess, because they almost got in field goal range and then they ended up running out of time. But the Lions' second half, defensively, they came out ready to go, right? They forced a punt, then it was a missed field goal, then it was the fumble, then it was a punt. Their first 4 possessions out of half did nothing, and the Lions built up a 24-10 lead. And it really felt like what you kind of felt in the first half going into half was starting to reflect on the scoreboard. Like, yeah, the Lions are playing the better football game. They're the better team right now. They're taking control of this game, and that's how it felt. And it felt like the Lions at any second there could have just put this game away. But it just felt like kind of one of those situations where you just kind of let the other team just hang around. And that's not to say Minnesota's like that bad team or something, but they just felt like they kept hanging around. And especially on the road, you kind of just want to put that kill shot in when you get the opportunity. It just felt like we kind of let Minnesota hang around, just like, no, we're not going yet. Still only 10 points. It looks worse, but it's still only 10 points. And then that came back to bite us in the very end. Minnesota fumbles, then we come back and go 3 and out, which was tough on its own because it was like, wow, we go up 3 scores, great field position. And that was the one where Goff had Chark and he missed him. He did. I mean, now he had an opportunity to still catch it. It was still a catchable pass, but he ended up missing DJ Chark, so that leads to that 3 and out. But I really didn't even have an issue with that because, on the game, I felt like what we were finding was a lot of consistency. I'll say this. Let's speak on the offense for a second. Just the eye test, without having rewatched this, I've watched the other games multiple times, but this one I felt like was Goff's best game, and I'll have to go see when I rewatch it. I thought this was hands down his best game. I get we didn't win, maybe it's not the best stat line. To me, I felt like he played better at Philly than he did Washington, right? And again, his stat line is way better at Washington. He had a really bad pick in Philly, but I thought this was his best game. And if you take out his stats of that last 45-second drive where we really had no shot whatsoever, he was 24 for 37 with a touchdown. And I think Ken put it in there, it was a plus 100 pass rating. I thought he was playing his butt off. There was a part in there where he was like 14 for 17. He felt like he was hitting on all cylinders. He felt like he had it rolling passing the ball. And give a lot of credit to our run game. Our run game set up a lot of play action for him. It kept him very clean when we went to play action passing situations. And it left him a lot of good pockets. Guys were getting open, and we seemed to, again, like we said, we were a different offense coming into this game than Minnesota had faced. Minnesota plays a lot of 2 deep. They played Philly. They played Green Bay. They played us, and we're going to run the football. So you're going to have to kind of throw assets at that. And if you don't, we're going to keep running the football. And we started to get that rolling. It really set up the play action. Lions seemed to find so much consistency out of that. They seemed to find so much. So you just felt like you were in good hands. And then on top of that, whenever we did go shotgun, and sometimes there were a few pressures that got in there, Goff took no sacks, right? I thought he had some off-schedule plays. He had a couple big conversions for us. I just thought he was efficient. He was good in this game, and I thought he played really, really solid. I thought it was his best game to this point. So you felt good about the offensive side of the ball. The way we're running, Swift is 4.4 yards a carry, even though he's kind of in and out. Jamal, I thought, was running really well, 4.4 yards per carry, right? We weren't beating ourselves offensively. We weren't getting penalized. We weren't having bad snaps. I mean, there were still some things that we left out there. Sometimes we just missed opportunities, but that always is the case. It's football. Every team misses opportunities, right? You're not going to be perfect. But it's the critical situations where you have to make those plays. And in this game, the Lions just felt like they had a good flow going offensively. But then let's stick on the offensive side before we get to the defensive side. That's when things for the Lions, well, I guess I could point to the play calling a little bit here because you come off this touchdown. Lions get it back off the fumble, right? We said it. I'm not too mad about this one, okay? You had a shot to DJ Chark. You missed him, right? It was incomplete. Then you come back with the check down to Swift. Maybe they should have ran it. I mean, hindsight, right? Try to get a couple yards. They don't get it. So then on 3rd down, Goff just takes off, scrambles, and they got no shot, so they ended up punting that. So that was tough. But then you come back and punt, and this was the one that got me, and I remember this got me live. The Lions on 3rd and 1 from their own 27 to try to take a double move shot to Josh Reynolds. Now, I think I can wrap my head around without seeing it back why the Lions would consider this. I think you can, right? Even someone said it's kind of like a kill shot. Yes, I thought Josh Reynolds was playing well to this point, and you got him on Patrick Peterson. Everybody's expecting run, so I can kind of wrap my head around like, okay, I see maybe where you're coming from here. But even in the moment, right? I'm not just saying this as a hindsight. Even in the moment, we did not like the idea to do this because to me, you can run it. Yeah, you can throw it. But to try to get that shot just felt unnecessary. It's a weird down to try to take a shot. I get it. I guess that's because no one's expecting it. But it's a weird down to try to get a one-on-one shot. It just is. You only need a yard. The Lions were running the ball well. They were picking up 4th downs pretty darn well. It felt like you could definitely get this. Maybe you don't. But to do that on this situation, right, from your own 27, which ultimately led to great field position for Minnesota at their own 43, and a lot of times in this first half, a lot of times in this game, they didn't have great field position, which I think hurt them just like it hurt Washington. You gave them great field position, and finally their offense comes alive and scores a touchdown off of that decision. It just felt, I just did not like it. I don't want to stick too much on it, but I just did not like the play call decision there. So then they score. Lions get it back. Next up, they have a turnover on downs. It's a long drive, but you got a turnover on downs. Jamal Williams is short. Now, what's unfortunate is this. You can pull it back a little bit. You go to the 2nd and 7 play. The Lions are at the Minnesota 39. They're coming off a 3-yard run. We're talking about all this play action, right? You know, St. Brown's kind of in and out at this point. And Khalif Raymond and Josh Reynolds run into each other. They run into each other, and you could see it was going to be wide open. All right, they ran a dig route right underneath the seam route, and it looked like he had him wide open. But they ran into each other, and Josh Reynolds had to come off the field. And maybe that's partly because of the timing, and Khalif wasn't playing a ton, and because St. Brown was dealing with the injury that he had to play some more roles that he didn't get his main reps in. Regardless, though, that happened. So that's a huge play that I don't want to overlook because, I mean, that was there, and it's unfortunate, but it can be those little things. So now you're in 3rd and 7, and you decide to run the football. And clearly the Lions were going for, hey, we're going to see if we can get close. If we can, we're going to go for it in this situation. So the Lions decide to go for it. Now, what's interesting here is the score is 24-21, and there's 3.5 minutes to go, right? The Lions decide to go for it. They decide to go for it from the Minnesota 30. They were clearly already planning to kind of do this by running it the play before, and I'm not mad that they did it. I'm not even here to be like, well, dang, why'd you do that? Because if you took the field goal then, the next field goal would have been this. I'm not even worried about that. But it's the fact that you made that decision. Then you come back a little bit later. You have your defense is flipped, put in a bad spot. You get a stop by a call that, well, a non-call basically on Amani, which I thought was fine. I didn't think the receiver even really ran a route. But he already had like 5 penalties. So you got off the field and it was like, whoa, how did that happen, right? I mean, really, the momentum seemed like at this point, this is when the momentum felt like it swung to me. And it felt like, oh gosh, we're going to be trailing here very shortly. But it didn't. And you got off the field. So you get the ball back. And this is the part where it gets to me, right? Because you get a stop on 4th and 8, right? We got Amani in coverage. You get the ball back, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but you got a 4th and 4 from the Minnesota 36. You're in a very similar spot. It's a 6-yard difference. I get you need 4 yards versus 1, but you can end the game. I don't see how you can take the ball. I don't see how you can take the game out of your hands. I guess that's the best way to put it. You have the ball in your hands, and I get trusting your defense and this and that, but to me, the flow of the game wasn't even going like that. If this game was 10-7, right, and your defense was like just shutting down, and they were much better in the second half, so I get that. But it didn't, even when we were getting stops, it didn't feel like the Lions were shutting them down. To me, it felt like we were kind of hanging on and just making a couple of critical plays. But it didn't feel like we were locking up the Vikings and it was like, let's play through the defense. Like, no. Your offense felt like it was really good. You were 4 for 6 on 4th down. And you decided to bring out the field goal unit. You get the first down, the game is over. And to take that out of your players' hands, to me, is what is the most upsetting thing. And I don't want to spend too much time. I actually love what Dan Campbell said. He basically just put it out there. Look, I regret the decision. I really do. I made the wrong decision. If I could do it again, I would have definitely kept the offense on the field. And even Goff said, hey, I should have probably said something and said, hey, keep me out there, because he probably would have if I would have said that. So for both those guys, someone's got to step up there. But I think this is something that Dan has to learn. I really think he's got to learn from this, because there has been times in the past where obviously he's been aggressive in certain moments, but in this key critical situation, he always talked about playing the flow, and I guess I can see in a way like playing the clock and what's the odds? Okay, only a minute left. They got to go get a touchdown. They got no timeouts. The odds may be better in your favor than picking up the 4th and 4, maybe, but the flow of the game was not that. And to me, on the road, you were the better team seemingly in the game. To take it out of your hands, to put it in a guy that's, by the way, he's already missed a field goal. And it's not a chip shot. It's a 54-yard field goal. You miss it, they're in great field position, which is exactly what happens. These situations would be really interesting to kind of monitor with Dan Campbell and how they handle these, right? Because every time you lose, it's always going to be looked at as bad. But I even think like last year, I remember against Chicago on the road, we were kind of in like hurry mode, and instead of taking the field goal and making a 7-point game with over 3 minutes left, we decided to go for it. We didn't pick it up, and the game basically ended there. We shortened the game, and you never want to shorten the game on the road when you're trailing. When you're down 2 scores, you don't shorten the game, right? Make it as long as possible. In that case, we basically shortened the game. It felt like we were kind of in a hurry, and we didn't really think it through. All the time I was like, oh, we're going for it. They came out, took a field goal, and what's the worst thing is I wasn't even excited when the field goal kicker came out, because if you would have made it, I wouldn't have been happy. I really wouldn't, because maybe we've just seen it so much from both sides where it's like sometimes we make these crazy comebacks where Lions got no timeouts, minute left, they go score and win the game. And it's like, well, dang, I would hate to be that other team. But you felt it. It just felt that. You're like, wait a minute, even if we make this, we're only up 6. This doesn't seem to make sense. Why would we take it out of our guys' hands? And to me, it almost felt like it kind of went against so many things Dan Campbell wants to be about, was to do that. And I love the fact that he acknowledged it, didn't try to like, well, I'm going to defend it. It was actually a good decision we made. Like, nah, man, it was a bad decision. He gets that. Broncos, right? The Broncos signed, hey, let's go put the field goal unit out there. Our position was even better position being. We had the lead. We only needed 4 yards. Our offense was clicking. It wasn't like Denver, who was struggling. And they decided to kick the field goal, and everybody's bashing them for it. No moral victories. There is no, hey, Dan, you got it this year, man. To me, there's not that. Maybe the Lions gave it to him. I doubt it. There are expectations. You had your one. There are expectations to win football games, and no one cares how close you are because it doesn't matter. We've been close before. And like the Lions ran the ball well. Jamal 4.4 a carry. Swift 4.4 a carry. If you look at Jared Goff's stat line, and I get it, the stat line is the stat line, but again, 24 for 37 and a touchdown if we don't count that last drive. The last drive was 45 seconds, didn't even feel like you have a shot. And actually, I didn't like the timeout during the time. I was like, why are we calling a timeout for them? Right? They're in hurry-up mode. I just don't get it. He said he wanted to do it so he could get some pass rush. And you know what, at that point, right, you already made the decision you're putting this under defense. Regardless if he makes that field goal, you're putting it under defense. They got to get a stop. So I guess in hindsight, because he made that decision, I agree with the decision to take the timeout to say, hey, let's try to get some pressure because I'm putting this on our defense. Our defense has to get a stop. So forget about trying to get the ball back. And I wasn't even looking at getting the ball back. I just felt like you should let their clock run. Let them be in panic mode, right? Don't give them time to sit back, because it just didn't feel like our defense was playing like that, and we weren't getting that kind of pressure. But he already put it in their hands. So I guess I can see that point. It's just unfortunate, man, because you had it. You absolutely had it. And I like what Goff said after the game. It's not like, we're almost there and that kind of thing. Like, we're there. We just had to have a couple things, we had to make a couple plays, and we had a couple opportunities to get outfield. And even to that, right? Okay, well, Lions, they were too conservative. They ran the ball, and they got it 3rd and 14. Yeah, but the thing is that the next run made it a 4th and 4. So you still picked up 6 yards running the football when they knew you were going to run the football. So I don't care how you got to that. You're coming off a penalty that reset the clock, took a timeout, and you just need a first down. Like, I don't care how you got there. I would have ran the ball multiple times too. But since you had a run that made it 4th and 4, regardless of how I got to 4th and 4, if I knew I was getting 4th and 4, I know I'm going because of their timeout situation. Individually, again, I haven't rewatched it yet. Evan Brown played at right guard. Someone called it this morning. That was a heck of a call. It seemed like he did pretty well, and I actually like that decision because Logan Stenberg, I don't think has played well the last 2 games. I thought he was a little bit better last week, but I don't think he's been good. So to make that decision to, okay, hey, look, Frank's playing. Let's try someone else at guard. I'm actually down with that. And Skipper obviously held that left guard. He seemed to have some blown blocks in there, but for the most part, it seemed like he was solid. But we'll see. I'll have to rewatch it. Amani had a tough day, which, you wonder, is he still hurt? He's dealing with the back injury. Is he healthy? To me, I would think he was healthy. I mean, he was out there, right? And we have Will Harris back, who I thought played actually pretty darn well last week. So to me, I think I may have started rotating him in coming out of half just so that, I could have had him in the flow of the game. And the Lions did it a little bit. They put him in defensive back positions, but they never actually put him in for Amani for like a series. I think I would have done it just to give him a different look, just to give him a breather, just to give him a nice little reset, just to he just felt like he was in a funk all game and he could not get out of it. It really did. He had like a big tackle in there. He also missed a tackle, right? I mean, he just felt like he was in a major funk and he needed something to get him out of it, and you kind of just left him out there. I feel like you should have did something. So to me, and this is what we were looking for, right? I wanted to see Jeff Okudah on Jefferson. Jefferson had 14 yards. And it wasn't just Okudah. I mean, the Lions seemingly put attention and they double-teamed him early in that game and they gave attention to him. But Jeff Okudah also seemingly did outstanding work, it seemed like, from the initial reactions on Justin Jefferson. He seemed to do his job. But what's unfortunate about this is that if you look back at last year, Amani struggled against Jefferson. So you had Jerry Jacobs at that point against Thielen, and Jerry Jacobs basically shut out Thielen. This time you have Jeff Okudah, who's slowing down Justin Jefferson. Yeah, you're throwing bodies, but Amani was getting he was really struggling with Adam Thielen in this game. He really was, and that's unfortunate. But I've said it going back to before the season, I don't think Amani's our best coverage corner. I really don't. I thought Jerry Jacobs was better than Amani last season. But Amani can make some big-time plays. He fits in certain areas, but he's not the stickiest man coverage guy, and he seemed to have struggled with it today. I just think the Lions at some point probably should have given him a breather at least. Just mix him out, see what happens. Just give Kirk a different look. That way it's just not the same thing over and over that he's seeing. I would have done that, but I don't know. I think that would have been something to do coming into half because you already felt like he was struggling going into halftime. Even though Amani did struggle and he had a lot of flags against him and he gave him some receptions as well, 5 flags against him is tough. The one on Okudah was whack, by the way. Okay, what the heck? Because he jammed him and knocked him over? That's a penalty? Like, what are we doing here? But the Lions did have some coverage pressures in there as well, you know, some timely ones. And they had the one timely sack where they dialed it up a little bit. They had a free rusher for Charles Harris, which forced an incomplete pass. So you like just by that, the way Aaron Glenn continues to try to find ways to get pressure or drop back in coverage. But even last week, the Lions got a lot of pressure through what they were able to do in coverage. Amon-Ra, I love that dude. I mean, my goodness, he just battles. He gives himself up to block. He's dealing with an injury. I hope he's healthy. I hope he's okay. But he just finds a way out there. Again, he's another guy that I would have maybe liked to see the Lions kind of mix in Khalifa a little bit earlier than they did. But St. Brown just kept going out there, and he had a big pickup for us on like a third down. The one time he didn't really get open on a linebacker, which I felt like he should have, but he didn't. So that was one that was like, oh, dang, okay. But regardless, I love the way the guy battles. I love the way the guy fights. I mean, it's awesome. Amon-Ra is awesome for this team. He really is. Jamal, I thought, did his thing as well. Tracy Walker, looks like it could be a serious injury. Ankle, Achilles potentially. I hope not. I don't know. They said they'll learn more tomorrow. I guess you guys were saying it carted off the field. I hope it's not that serious, but it did not look good. And Hutchinson also seemed a little bit in and out this game. There were stretches there where he was not in the game, probably just because of a breather, I would think. But that's another thing to keep an eye on. But yeah, specifically Tracy Walker, hopefully he's okay. I thought Hughes actually stepped in well. Juju Hughes seemed to. However, I don't know who it was on that last play, but it was a little bit of a communication breakdown. Mike Hughes was looking for safety help on that touchdown, and it could have been Juju Hughes' responsibility to get over there and give some help, and there was none. So that could have been kind of a result of him being in the game. I don't know for sure. I'm just kind of maybe potentially putting that out there. He had a really good big-time tackle for us to limit a couple games. Man, that guy battles as well. But regardless, look, it wasn't perfect, but you knew it wasn't going to be. You're on the road. You're playing a team that's very talented. It wasn't like you looked at it and said, man, the Lions they're outmatched, right? They're just hanging in there. They're getting some things going their right. Like when we played the Rams last year, the Lions looked outmatched. They looked outmatched, but they threw everything at them, right? They threw everything at them. They said, hey, we're going to go onside. We're going to fake a punt. We'll fake another punt. We're going to throw everything at you to stay in this. The Lions they easily could hang. They didn't look outmatched. They looked like the better team to me in this game. It was like, hey, Lions are there, and their offense continued to look good. And Goff was playing at a level I think it was his best this year. But you let it slip away, and that's what's so unfortunate is that it just won't matter. It will not matter when we come back at the end of the year. It just won't matter. It's going to count as a loss. It's going to count as a divisional loss. And right now, currently, the Lions are last in the division because everybody else won today. That's what's going to matter at the end of all of this. That's unfortunate, but that's what it is. But if there is something optimistic, because you got to always take something optimistic out of it, the Lions can hang. And it's not even just hang. Like, the Lions are legitimately talented. The Lions are a legitimately good team that has their flaws, right? They do. They struggled against the run today. They've been great the first 2 weeks. Today they struggled. That's always been Achilles' kind of heel with them. But they found ways in critical moments to make big-time stops to get us in command of that game. Offensively, there's a lot of teams that I don't know if they can hang with the Lions this year. Seriously, we have been efficient on the road to do this was awesome. I look at teams like New England. I don't know if New England can hang with us. Now, they scored 26 today. Maybe they can. Seattle. I don't think Seattle should be able to hang with the Lions. Score for score, I just don't think they can. Next week now has a lot more pressure, I think, than it did before. The players won't take it like that, but I think it does because it's like, well, you can't go 1-3. So now next week has a lot more pressure than it probably should have. This was, again, I came in saying this was a swing game. It was a bigger swing for the win, a smaller swing for the loss. If you lose, it's like, okay, you're kind of expected to lose. It's a tough game. You're still okay. You got 2 games, very legitimate winnable games, and then Dallas coming out of bye week that you can win. But if you win, you put yourself in an awesome spot with a tremendous win on the road, your first road win with this regime. I don't even think it's just optimism. I think it's just reality. The Lions are a talented team. This is a team that can compete with anybody. So when people say that they could be, that paper-wise and stuff, they could be playoff contenders, it's not crazy. But playoff contenders win tight games. You have to win tight games because that's the NFL. It's the NFL, specifically division games. You have to find a way. And this is not something that's going to break their season, right? It shouldn't. But it's going to force them to have to bounce back. And it's going to put some early pressure on them, which may be good for them. May be good for them to have that early. It's a game you're going to be expected to win now going back home, and you should handle business. I mean, I think it kind of puts that out there. You should handle business, and we'll see how the Lions respond to it. But tough loss. Regardless, Now you got to bounce back. There's good things to take away from this. Just hurts right now. So we'll come back. We'll follow more of this throughout the week. Take a look at some things specifically. But the Lions are 1-2 after a tight loss. Your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.